My name is David Martinez. I'm 38 years old, and I thought I knew my wife. 13 years of marriage, a beautiful son, a comfortable life in suburban Chicago. But on Tuesday, October 15th, 2024, at exactly 1:47 p.m., I discovered that the woman I loved, the mother of my child, was a complete stranger. And it all started because my 7-year-old son forgot his tablet at home. That morning began like any other. The alarm went off at 6:30 a.m. My wife, Jennifer, was already up, her blonde hair pulled back in that messy bun she always wore when she was stressed about work. She was pacing in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, her voice low and urgent. "I understand that, Marcus, but we need to move faster. The timeline is too tight," she was saying as I walked in. When she saw me, she immediately switched to a bright smile. "Hey, honey, I've got to take this. Client emergency." I nodded, used to her high-pressure job as a business consultant. Jennifer worked for Titan Strategy Group, a firm that specialized in corporate restructuring. Or at least, that's what I thought she did. Our son Jake came bounding down the stairs, his Spider-Man backpack bouncing on his small shoulders. "Dad, I can't find my tablet anywhere." I glanced at the clock. 7:42 a.m. The school bus would arrive in 8 minutes. "Did you check your room?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Jake had that panicked look that only kids get when they're running late. "Yes, it's not there." Jennifer was still on the phone, now walking toward her home office. I could see her iPad sitting on the kitchen counter, the elegant black case identical to Jake's school-issued tablet. Here's the thing about that moment. I made a decision that seemed so simple, so innocent. I grabbed Jennifer's iPad and slid it into Jake's backpack. "Take Mom's for today. I'll find yours when I get home from work." Jake's face lit up. "Thanks, Dad. You're the best." The school bus horn honked outside. Jake ran to the door, his backpack bouncing with each step. I watched him climb onto that yellow bus, waving at his best friend Tommy, who'd saved him a seat. The bus pulled away, and I went back inside to finish my coffee. I had no idea that in exactly 6 hours and 5 minutes, my entire world would explode. The morning passed normally. I worked from my home office analyzing security protocols for the tech company that employed me as a cybersecurity consultant. Jennifer left for her downtown office around 9 a.m., barely saying goodbye, still on that phone call with Marcus. At 11:30 a.m., my phone rang. Jennifer's name lit up the screen. "Hey, babe," I answered, not looking away from my computer monitors. "How's the client crisis?" Silence. Then, "David, did Jake take my iPad to school?" Something in her voice made me pause. In 13 years of marriage, I'd learned to read Jennifer's tones. This wasn't her usual controlled, professional voice. This was fear. "Yeah, he couldn't find his tablet. I figured you had your laptop at the office anyway. Is there a problem?" Another pause. Longer this time. "No, no problem. I had some work files on it that I need. Can you call the school and have them send it home with him today instead of keeping it overnight?" "Sure, but Jennifer, I have to go. Client call. Love you." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, replaying the conversation. Jennifer was always so composed, even during actual emergencies. When Jake broke his arm last year, she'd driven to the hospital with the calm efficiency of a seasoned ER doctor. When her father died, she'd handled all the funeral arrangements without shedding a single tear in public. But just now, talking about an iPad, she'd been scared. I was still thinking about it when my phone rang again at 1:47 p.m. The number showed Oakwood Elementary School. "Mr. Martinez, this is Principal Thompson." "Hi, Principal Thompson. Is everything okay?" The pause that followed made my stomach drop. "Mr. Martinez, I need you to come to the school immediately. There's been a situation involving the tablet Jake brought today." "What kind of situation? Is Jake hurt?" "Jake is fine, but we need you here right away. The police are already on their way." The phone slipped from my suddenly numb fingers. Police. At my son's elementary school. Because of an iPad. I was in my car and speeding toward Oakwood Elementary before Principal Thompson's words fully registered. My mind raced through possibilities. Was the iPad stolen? Had Jake accidentally accessed something he shouldn't have? Did it have some kind of virus that infected the school network? The 15-minute drive felt like hours. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I kept thinking about Jennifer's phone call, the fear in her voice, her urgent need to get that iPad back. What was on that device? When I pulled into the school parking lot, my heart sank. 2 police cruisers sat in the circular drive, their lights off but their presence unmistakable. A small crowd of parents had gathered near the main entrance, whispering to each other and glancing nervously at the building. I parked and ran to the entrance. A uniformed officer, tall and broad-shouldered with graying hair, stopped me at the door. "Mr. Martinez?" "Yes. Where's my son? Is he okay?" "Your son is fine, sir. I'm Detective James Crawford. We need to talk." The way he said those 5 words, calm, professional, but with an undercurrent of something darker, made my blood run cold. "Talk about what?" Detective Crawford gestured toward the administrative wing. "This way, please." As we walked down the familiar hallway decorated with colorful student artwork, I caught a glimpse through a classroom window. Jake was sitting at his desk, working on what looked like a math worksheet, seemingly unaware of the chaos around him. Relief flooded through me. Whatever this was about, at least Jake was safe. The conference room was small and smelled faintly of cleaning solution. Principal Thompson sat at the oval table, her usually cheerful face replaced with something I'd never seen before. Barely contained horror. Jake's teacher, Mrs. Peterson, stood near the window, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold something in. Detective Crawford closed the door and motioned for me to sit. "Mr. Martinez, this morning your son brought an iPad to school. Is that correct?" "Yes. His tablet wasn't working, so I let him use my wife's iPad. Is there a problem with the school network? Did it cause some kind of system issue?" Mrs. Peterson made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a sob. Detective Crawford opened a folder on the table. "Mr. Martinez, during free reading time at approximately 12:30 p.m., Jake was using the iPad to access an educational reading app. The device received several notifications, text messages, and photo alerts." "Okay." Jake, being a curious 7-year-old, clicked on one of the notifications. What he saw prompted Mrs. Peterson to immediately confiscate the device and contact Principal Thompson. My mouth went dry. What did he see? Detective Crawford slid a paper across the table. It was a screenshot, but the image had been pixelated and redacted, showing only text. The messages were explicit in nature, Mr. Martinez. Very explicit, but that's not the worst part. Principal Thompson spoke for the first time, her voice shaking. "The photos, Mr. Martinez, the photos that came through were of children." The room started spinning. "Children?" "Young children," Detective Crawford said quietly. in situations that constitute child sexual abuse material. Your son saw one of these images before Mrs. Peterson could take the device away. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. No, that's impossible. That iPad belongs to my wife. Jennifer would never. We've secured the device as evidence, Detective Crawford continued. We'll need to conduct a full forensic examination, but Mr. Martinez, I need to ask you some questions. How well do you know your wife's digital activities? This is insane. Jennifer is a business consultant. She works with corporations. There must be some mistake. The messages we've seen so far indicate otherwise. The contact name associated with these messages is Client M. Do you know who that might be? Client M. Marcus. Jennifer on the phone that morning. I understand that, Marcus, but we need to move faster. She mentioned a client named Marcus this morning, I heard myself say. But he's just a client. She does corporate consulting. Detective Crawford and Principal Thompson exchanged a look that made my stomach drop even further. Mr. Martinez, the detective said slowly, the messages on that iPad suggest your wife is involved in something far more serious than corporate consulting. We're going to need you to come to the station to answer some questions, and we're going to need access to your home. Am I under arrest? Not at this time, but we need your cooperation. I looked at Mrs. Peterson, still standing by the window, her face pale. Jake? Does he understand what he saw? He asked me why there were pictures of kids without clothes on, she whispered. I told him the iPad had a virus and not to worry about it. But Mr. Martinez, as a mandated reporter, I had no choice. I understand, I cut her off. You did the right thing. But inside, I was screaming. Because in that moment I realized that my entire life, my marriage, my family, everything I thought I knew about the woman I loved was built on lies, and this was only the beginning. Detective Crawford stood up. Mr. Martinez, I'm going to need you to call your wife. We need her to come home immediately. Don't tell her what this is about. Just tell her there's a family emergency and she needs to come home right now. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. Jennifer's smiling face looked back at me from my contact photo. That picture was taken on our anniversary last year. We'd gone to that Italian restaurant she loved. She'd worn a red dress and laughed at all my terrible jokes. Was any of it real? I dialed her number. It rang 3 times before she answered. David, what's wrong? I'm in a meeting. You need to come home, right now. What? Why? What happened? I looked at Detective Crawford, who nodded encouragement. There's been an incident at Jake's school. He's fine, but you need to come home immediately. An incident? What kind of incident? David, you're scaring me. Just come home, Jennifer, please. There was a long pause. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Gone was the fear from this morning. Now there was something else. Calculation. Does this have to do with the iPad? Detective Crawford's eyes sharpened. He gestured for me to keep talking. Jennifer, what's on that iPad? David, listen to me very carefully. Don't let anyone look at that device. Do you understand? Tell the school it's protected by attorney-client privilege. I'll be there in 20 minutes with our lawyer. Jennifer, the police are already here. They've already seen. The line went dead. I looked at Detective Crawford. She's coming with a lawyer. That's her right, he said. But Mr. Martinez, her response tells me everything I need to know. Your wife knew exactly what was on that device, and her first instinct wasn't to ask if your son was okay. It was to protect herself. The reality of what was happening finally crashed over me like a wave. Jennifer wasn't a victim of some mistake or hack. She knew. She knew what was on that iPad, and she'd been willing to let our 7-year-old son take it to school rather than risk anyone discovering what she was hiding. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Now we wait for your wife to arrive. And Mr. Martinez." Detective Crawford's voice softened slightly. "I know this is devastating, but I need you to stay focused. We're going to need your help to understand the full scope of what your wife has been involved in. Can you do that?" I thought about Jake, sitting in his classroom, probably confused about why his dad was at school, but not taking him home. I thought about all the nights Jennifer had worked late, all the client calls she'd taken behind closed doors, all the business trips that kept her away for days at a time. How long had this been going on, and how had I been so blind? "Yes," I told Detective Crawford, "I'll help you however I can." Because in that moment, I realized that the woman who would arrive at this school in 20 minutes wasn't my wife. My wife, the person I thought I'd married, had never existed. The real Jennifer was a stranger, and I was about to discover just how dangerous that stranger truly was. Jennifer arrived exactly 17 minutes later. Through the conference room window, I watched her Mercedes pull into the parking lot, followed closely by a black BMW. A man in an expensive suit emerged from the BMW, tall, silver-haired, with a kind of commanding presence that screamed high-powered attorney. Detective Crawford stood beside me, his arms crossed. "That's Robert Castellano," he said quietly. "One of the most expensive criminal defense lawyers in Chicago. Interesting choice for a business consultant to have on speed dial, don't you think?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because watching Jennifer walk toward the school entrance, her posture perfect, her face composed, I realized I was looking at a performance. She'd had 17 minutes to prepare her mask, and now she was wearing it flawlessly. They entered the conference room like they owned it. Jennifer's eyes found mine immediately, and for just a split second, less than a heartbeat, I saw something flicker across her face. Fear? Regret? But then it was gone, replaced by cool professionalism. "David," she said, her voice steady, "are you all right? Is Jake okay?" Before I could answer, Castellano stepped forward. "I'm Robert Castellano, Mrs. Martinez's attorney. Before anyone says anything, I need to make something clear. My client will not be answering any questions at this time." Detective Crawford smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Castellano, we're not questioning your client yet. We're simply explaining the situation, though I find it interesting that a business consultant needs a criminal defense attorney." "My client retains counsel for various business matters," Castellano replied smoothly. "Now, what's this about an iPad?" Principal Thompson spoke up, her voice shaking slightly. "Mrs. Martinez, your son accessed your iPad during school hours today. He saw inappropriate material that we've reported to the police as required by law." Jennifer's face remained perfectly neutral, but her hand, the one Castellano couldn't see, clenched into a fist. "I don't know what you're talking about. My iPad is password protected." "Your son knows your password," Mrs. Peterson said quietly from the corner. "He told us it's his birthday, October 12th. For the first time, Jennifer's mask slipped, just for a second, but I saw it. Panic. Detective Crawford opened his folder again. "Mrs. Martinez, the device is currently being examined by our digital forensics team. What they've found so far is..." disturbing. Text messages discussing the procurement and distribution of child sexual abuse material, photographs of children in explicit situations, financial transactions indicating payment for these materials. My client has nothing to say, Castellano cut in sharply. We also found something else, Detective Crawford continued, his eyes locked on Jennifer. Flight records, hotel reservations, all under your name, traveling to locations known for child trafficking operations, Thailand, Cambodia, the Philippines, sometimes for weeks at a time. The business trips. All those nights she was away, all those times she told me she was restructuring a company in another state. I'd believed every word. David, Jennifer said, turning to me. Her voice was softer now, almost pleading. You know me. You know I would never. Do I know you? The words came out harsher than I intended. Because the woman I thought I knew wouldn't have child abuse images on her iPad. The woman I thought I knew wouldn't have our 7-year-old son accidentally exposed to that horror. Mr. Martinez, Castellano warned, I'd advise you not to say anything that could be construed as what? I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. My wife is involved in something that put our son in danger, something that traumatized his teacher, something that brought the police to his school. What exactly am I supposed to say? Jennifer's composure finally cracked. David, please, you don't understand. Then help me understand, I shouted. Tell me what Client M is. Tell me what those messages mean. Tell me why you have pictures of children on your device. That's enough, Castellano said firmly. Mrs. Martinez, we're leaving. Detective, if you want to question my client, you'll need to arrest her. Otherwise, we're done here. Detective Crawford stood slowly. Mrs. Martinez, we will be executing a search warrant on your home within the hour. We will be seizing all electronic devices, financial records, and any materials relevant to our investigation. You are not under arrest at this time, but I strongly advise you not to leave the Chicago area. Jennifer's face went white. You can't just... We can, and we will, Detective Crawford said. Mr. Martinez, I'll need you to come with us to your home to facilitate the search. What about Jake? I asked. He can't be there for that. I've already called my sister, Jennifer said quietly. She can pick him up from school and keep him for the night. It was such a normal thing to say, such a routine parental coordination, but nothing about this was normal anymore. Fine, I said. But Jennifer, when this is over, when they find whatever they're going to find, I want you out of our house, out of our lives. Her eyes filled with tears, the first genuine emotion I'd seen from her all day. David, please, you can't mean that. Think about Jake. Think about our family. I am thinking about Jake, I said quietly. I'm thinking about how his mother put him in danger, how she exposed him to things no child should ever see. Whatever you're involved in, Jennifer, you did this, not me, you. The drive home was surreal. I rode in my own car, followed by 2 police vehicles and the forensics van. Jennifer and Castellano drove separately, her Mercedes staying carefully within the speed limit, as if following traffic laws could somehow prove her innocence. Our house looked so normal from the outside. White siding, black shutters, a perfectly manicured lawn. The American dream. But I knew that in minutes that dream would be torn apart, room by room, device by device, lie by lie. Detective Crawford met me at the front door. Mr. Martinez, I need you to show us your wife's office first. After that, we'll need access to all shared spaces, your bedroom, any place she might have stored materials. I led them through my own home, like a stranger giving a tour. Jennifer's office was on the second floor, a converted bedroom with a large desk, filing cabinets, and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. She always kept it locked, claiming she had confidential client information inside. "Do you have a key?" Detective Crawford asked. "No. She always kept it locked, even from me." He nodded to one of the officers, who produced a small tool and had the door open in seconds. The office looked normal. Too normal. Everything was perfectly organized, files arranged by color, books alphabetized, desk clear except for a monitor and keyboard. It was the office of someone with something to hide. The forensics team immediately began their work, photographing everything, carefully cataloging items, removing the computer tower, collecting files. I stood in the doorway watching strangers dismantle my wife's private space and felt nothing but numbness. "Mr. Martinez," one of the forensic technicians called out. She was kneeling by the bookshelf, wearing latex gloves, holding what looked like a small black notebook. "You're going to want to see this." Detective Crawford took the notebook, flipped through a few pages, and his jaw tightened. "Mr. Martinez, do you recognize any of these names?" He showed me a page filled with Jennifer's neat handwriting. Names, dates, numbers that looked like amounts of money, and next to each name, disturbing notations. Age 7, Thailand, 15K. Age 9, Cambodia, 22K. Age 6, Philippines, 18K. My legs felt weak. I gripped the door frame to steady myself. "I don't know any of these names. What is this?" "This appears to be a ledger," Detective Crawford said grimly. "Documentation of transactions. Mr. Martinez, I think you should sit down." "I don't want to sit down. I want to know what my wife has been doing." He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Based on what we're seeing, your wife appears to have been operating as a facilitator in an international child trafficking network. The business consulting was a cover. The trips weren't for corporate clients. They were for procurement and distribution." The room tilted. "Procurement of children?" "We'll know more after we examine all the evidence, but yes, that's what it looks like." I thought about all those trips. Jennifer coming home with gifts for Jake, toys, clothes, souvenirs, from places she claimed to have barely left the hotel. Had she bought those gifts in the same places she was, destroying other children's lives? "Mr. Martinez, I need to ask you some difficult questions," Detective Crawford said gently. "And I need you to be completely honest with me. Did you ever suspect your wife was involved in illegal activities?" "No, never. I thought she was just really dedicated to her work." "Did you ever meet any of her clients?" I thought back. "No. She said they preferred confidentiality. Corporate restructuring can be sensitive, so I never pushed." "Did you ever have access to her financial accounts?" "We have a joint account for household expenses, but she has separate business accounts. She said it was cleaner for tax purposes." Detective Crawford made notes. "Did your wife ever bring work associates to your home?" "Rarely. There was one man, Marcus something, who came to a dinner party about 6 months ago. Jennifer introduced him as a colleague. They stepped outside to take a call together, stayed out there for about 20 minutes. Can you describe him?" "Late 40s, maybe early 50s, dark hair going gray, expensive watch, foreign accent, European, maybe German or Dutch. Confident, like he was used to being in charge." Crawford exchanged glances with another officer. "That matches a description we've been working with. Marcus Volker. He's a person of interest in several international trafficking cases. If your wife was working with him, he didn't need to finish the sentence. If Jennifer was working with someone like that, she wasn't just involved. She was deeply embedded in something monstrous. "Detective," the forensic technician called again. "We found a safe hidden behind the bookshelf." They moved the bookshelf aside. It was on wheels, designed to slide smoothly, revealing a wall safe. Not a cheap home security model, but a serious piece of equipment. "Mr. Martinez, do you know the combination?" I didn't even know it existed. It took them 40 minutes to crack it. When they finally opened it, I saw Detective Crawford's face go pale. Inside were stacks of documents, passports, at least 6 of them, all with Jennifer's photo but different names. Bank statements showing accounts in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Singapore, and most damning of all, a laptop that wasn't protected by any corporate firewall or security. "We're going to need you to leave the room now," Detective Crawford said quietly. "What we're about to examine. You don't need to see this, Mr. Martinez." But I'd already seen one of the documents on top of the stack. An invoice printed on official-looking letterhead. "Client services rendered," and below that, descriptions that made my stomach turn. I stumbled out of the office and barely made it to the bathroom before I vomited. Everything I'd eaten that day came up, along with what felt like 13 years of lies. When I finally emerged, Detective Crawford was waiting in the hallway. "Mr. Martinez, we're going to be here for several more hours. You might want to go stay with a friend or family member tonight." "Where's Jennifer?" "She and her attorney left 20 minutes ago. She's not under arrest yet, but we have officers watching her. She won't run." "How can you be sure?" "Because runners leave everything behind. Your wife has a son she loves, a life she's built. She'll stay and fight this, at least initially. But Mr. Martinez," he put a hand on my shoulder, "you need to prepare yourself. What we're finding here, this isn't a small operation. Your wife wasn't just involved, she was running it." The words hit me like physical blows. Running it. Jennifer wasn't a victim or a low-level participant. She was in charge. "I need to see Jake," I said. "I need to see my son." "Your sister-in-law picked him up an hour ago. She took him to her place in Evanston. Maybe give them some time before you—" "No, I need to see him now." Because in that moment, Jake was the only real thing left in my life. Everything else, my marriage, my home, my understanding of the past 13 years, was built on lies. But Jake was real. My son was innocent, and I needed to hold on to something real before I completely lost my mind. I drove to Jennifer's sister's house in a daze, barely remembering the 40-minute trip. Sarah answered the door, her face full of concern. "David, what's going on?" Jennifer called and said there was an emergency at school, but she wouldn't explain. "Where's Jake?" "In the living room, watching cartoons." "David, you're scaring me." "What happened?" I pushed past her and found my son sitting on the couch, surrounded by toys Sarah had clearly pulled out to distract him. When Jake saw me, his face lit up. "Dad, Aunt Sarah said I could stay for a sleepover. Can Tommy come too?" I knelt down in front of him, taking his small hands in mine. "Buddy, I need to ask you something important. The picture you saw on Mom's iPad today, do you remember it?" His smile faded. "Mrs. Peterson said it was a virus, that the iPad was sick." "That's right. It was a mistake. But I need you to tell me, did the picture upset you?" Jake thought about it, his 7-year-old brain processing something no child should have to process. It was weird. The kids didn't have clothes. Why didn't they have clothes, Dad? My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. Sometimes bad people take pictures they shouldn't take. But you didn't do anything wrong by seeing it, okay? It was an accident. Is Mom in trouble? Is that why the police came? Kids are perceptive. They always know more than we think they do. Mom might be in trouble, yes, but that's not your fault. And no matter what happens, I'm here. I'm always going to be here. Okay? He hugged me tight, his small arms around my neck, and I held him like he was the only solid thing in a world that had tilted completely off its axis. I love you, buddy, I whispered. I love you too, Dad. Sarah pulled me aside, while Jake went back to his cartoons. David, what the hell is going on? I told her everything. Watched her face go from confusion to disbelief to horror. No, she said when I finished. No, that's impossible. Jennifer would never. We grew up together. I've known her my entire life. She's my sister. Did you know about her trips? The real reason for them? She said it was work, corporate consulting. She's been doing that for years. Did she ever seem different after those trips? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes she'd come back quieter, distant. I asked her once if everything was okay, and she said the travel was exhausting. I believed her. We all believed her, I said bitterly. That was her genius. She built a perfect cover, a perfect life, and we never questioned it. My phone buzzed. A text from Detective Crawford. Need you back at the house. Found something else. I closed my eyes. What else could there possibly be? I have to go, I told Sarah. Can Jake stay here tonight? Of course. David, I'm so sorry. I can't imagine what you're going through. But she could never truly imagine. Because even in that moment, with everything I'd learned, I still hadn't grasped the full scope of what Jennifer had done. I was about to discover that the horror had layers I couldn't have conceived of in my worst nightmares. When I got back to the house, Detective Crawford met me at the door. His face was grave. Mr. Martinez, we found another laptop. This one was hidden in your basement, inside a false electrical panel. And what's on it? He paused. It's worse than we thought. Much worse. Just tell me. Your wife wasn't just facilitating trafficking. She was documenting it. She has files on hundreds of children, transaction records going back 8 years, communications with buyers and suppliers across 17 countries. Mr. Martinez, your wife was running one of the largest child trafficking operations in North America. The world went silent. I could see his mouth moving, could see the other officers working in the background, could see the lights of the forensics equipment, but I couldn't hear anything. All I could hear was the sound of my own heart breaking. 8 years. Jennifer had been doing this for 8 years, since Jake was born. Our entire life as parents had been a lie. There's more, Detective Crawford said quietly. We found evidence that suggests she wasn't working alone. There are others. A network of people in positions of power, business leaders, politicians, even law enforcement. This is bigger than just your wife, Mr. Martinez. This is an organization. And that's when I realized something that chilled me to the bone. If this was an organization with powerful people protecting it, then Jennifer wasn't just a criminal. She was a monster with friends in high places, and I had just become a threat to all of them. The FBI arrived at 6:47 a.m. the next morning. I hadn't slept. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that ledger, those ages, those prices, children reduced to transactions in my wife's neat handwriting. I was sitting in Sarah's kitchen, drinking my fourth cup of coffee, when 3 black SUVs pulled up outside. Jake was still asleep upstairs, and I wanted to keep it that way for as long as possible. The lead agent was a woman in her mid-40s, with sharp eyes and an air of authority that made Detective Crawford look like a rookie. She showed me her credentials through the window before Sarah even opened the door. "Mr. Martinez, I'm Special Agent Rebecca Torres, FBI Crimes Against Children Division. We need to talk." Sarah let them in. Torres and 2 other agents, both carrying laptops and thick folders. They set up at the dining room table like they were preparing for war. "Mr. Martinez, I'll get straight to it," Torres said. "Your wife's operation is the biggest we've uncovered in 5 years. The laptop we found in your basement contains evidence of trafficking networks across North America, Europe, and Southeast Asia. We're talking about hundreds of victims, millions of dollars in transactions, and a list of clients that includes some very powerful people." "Detective Crawford mentioned that," I said, my voice hollow. "He said there were people in positions of power." Torres opened one of the laptops and turned it toward me. "Mr. Martinez, I'm going to show you something. It's not graphic, but it's going to be difficult to see." On the screen was a spreadsheet, columns of data that looked like any business ledger, dates, amounts, transaction IDs. But the row headers made my blood run cold, client names, and next to them, their professions. I saw a state senator's name, a federal judge, the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, a news anchor whose face I recognized from television, a police chief from a neighboring county. "This is just the Chicago area," Torres said quietly. "Your wife's network spans 17 countries. We're coordinating with Interpol, Europol, and law enforcement agencies worldwide. This is the biggest coordinated takedown we've attempted in a decade." My hands started shaking. These people, they know who I am. They know where I live. They know about Jake. "Which is why we're here," Torres said. "Mr. Martinez, as of right now, you and your son are under federal protection. We're going to move you to a safe location within the hour." "What about Jennifer? Is she under arrest?" "Not yet. We're building an airtight case. Her attorney filed an injunction last night trying to suppress the evidence from the iPad, claiming it was obtained without proper warrant. It won't work, but it's buying her time." "She's going to run," I said. "If she knows how bad this is, she's going to disappear." Torres smiled grimly. "She's going to try. We have agents watching her apartment. Yes, she's been living in a separate apartment in downtown Chicago for the past 6 months. Did you know about that?" I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "No. She said she was staying late at the office on weekends. Sometimes she'd text that she was too tired to drive home and was getting a hotel. The apartment is in the name of one of her fake identities, Victoria Brennan. She's been using it as an operational headquarters. We raided it 3 hours ago." Torres pulled out her phone and showed me photos. An upscale apartment with a view of Lake Michigan. But it wasn't decorated like a home. It was an office, multiple computers, filing cabinets, a wall covered in maps with pins marking locations across the globe. "We found communication logs," Torres continued. "Your wife was scheduled to fly to Singapore tomorrow morning. One-way ticket. We believe she was planning to disappear permanently." "Tomorrow?" I thought about the past few weeks. Had Jennifer been acting differently? Had there been signs I'd missed? Yes. She'd been distant, distracted. I'd attributed it to work stress, but she'd been planning her escape. "What about Jake?" I asked. "Was she planning to take him?" Torres hesitated. "There was one ticket, Mr. Martinez, just one." The implication hit me like a freight train. Jennifer was going to abandon both of us, her son, her husband, her entire life. She was going to leave it all behind to save herself. "She never loved us," I whispered. "Any of it. It was all just cover." "Mr. Martinez, I can't speak to your wife's feelings, but I can tell you that people like her are very good at compartmentalization. She may have genuinely cared for you and your son while simultaneously doing monstrous things. The human mind is capable of profound contradiction." It was meant to be comforting, but it just made everything worse, because it meant that our happy moments, birthdays, holidays, quiet Sunday mornings, might have been real to her, even while she was destroying other families. "When are you arresting her?" I asked. "This afternoon. We're coordinating arrests across 8 countries simultaneously. It has to be precise. If we move too early, others in the network will disappear. If we wait too long, someone might tip them off." Sarah appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a bathrobe. "David, what's going on? Who are these people?" I explained as gently as I could. Watched my sister-in-law's face go through the same journey mine had: disbelief, denial, horror, acceptance. "Jake can't know about this," Sarah said firmly. "He's 7 years old. He doesn't need to understand that his mother is a—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "He'll have to know something eventually," Torres said. "But we have child psychologists on staff who specialize in helping children process trauma. When the time comes, we'll make sure Jake has the support he needs." "When the time comes?" I repeated. "What does that mean?" "It means we need to move you now. Pack what you need for a week. We have a secure location prepared. Once the arrests begin, this house won't be safe." "You think someone will come after us?" "Mr. Martinez, your wife's clients paid enormous sums of money for access to children. Some of them are extremely wealthy, extremely powerful, and extremely motivated to protect themselves. Yes, I think someone might try to silence you before you can testify." The word testify hung in the air like a bomb. "I'm going to have to testify?" "You're a key witness. You can verify your wife's movements, her behavior, her contacts. Your testimony will be crucial in establishing the scope and duration of her operation." I thought about standing in a courtroom, facing Jennifer across the aisle. Thought about recounting our 13 years together to a jury, explaining how I'd been blind to what she was doing. Thought about those powerful men whose names were on that spreadsheet, watching me from the gallery, calculating whether I was worth eliminating. "What if I refuse?" I asked quietly. Torres looked at me with something like pity. "Then a lot of very bad people go free, and the children your wife trafficked, the ones who survived, the ones who might still be saved, they don't get justice. Is that something you can live with?" She was right, of course. I didn't have a choice. Not really. "I'll do it," I said. "Whatever you need, I'll do it." "Good. Now wake your son. We need to leave in 30 minutes. Waking Jake and explaining that we were going on an adventure was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. He was excited at first. 7-year-olds love adventures. But when he saw the FBI agents, the black SUVs, the serious faces, his excitement turned to confusion. "Dad, are we in trouble?" "No, buddy, we're not in trouble, but we need to go somewhere safe for a little while." "Is Mom coming?" I knelt down to his level. "No, Mom can't come with us right now." "Because she's in trouble." Kids see everything. They understand more than we give them credit for. Yes, Mom made some very bad choices, and now she has to deal with the consequences. But that's not your fault, and it's not my fault. Sometimes people we love make terrible mistakes. Will I see her again? I looked at Agent Torres, who gave a slight nod. Maybe someday, when you're older, but not for a long time. Jake processed this with the resilience that children somehow possess. Okay, can I bring my Spider-Man figures? You can bring whatever you want, buddy. The safe house was a nondescript townhouse in a suburb I didn't recognize. 2 agents stayed with us around the clock, rotating in 12-hour shifts. There was no TV, no internet access, no connection to the outside world. It felt like being in prison, except we were the innocent ones. Agent Torres visited on day 3 with news. We executed the arrests this morning, she said. Your wife, 17 clients in the Chicago area, and 43 others across North America and Europe. It's all over the news. She showed me her tablet. The headlines were everywhere. Massive child trafficking network dismantled. Prominent Chicago businesswoman arrested in international operation. FBI, hundreds of victims in decade-long trafficking scheme. And there was Jennifer's face, her professional headshot from the Titan Strategy Group website, smiling confidently at the camera. The caption beneath read, Jennifer Martinez, 36, allegedly ran one of the largest child trafficking operations in North America. Titan Strategy Group is denying any knowledge of her activities, Torres said. They claim she was operating independently, using the company as a front. Were they involved? I asked. We're investigating, but it appears your wife was clever enough to keep her criminal enterprise completely separate from her legitimate business. The consulting work was real. She actually did restructure companies. It was the perfect cover. I scrolled through the articles, each one more damning than the last. Then I saw it. A photo of our house, police tape across the front, news vans parked on the street. The media knows where we live? They know where you lived. That's why you're here. Mr. Martinez, you need to prepare yourself. When this goes to trial, the media attention will be intense. Your life, your marriage, everything will be scrutinized. They'll want to know how you didn't know. They'll question whether you were complicit. I wasn't. I had no idea. I believe you. The evidence supports your innocence, but public opinion doesn't always align with facts. You need to be ready for that. That night, after Jake was asleep, I sat in the safe house kitchen and did something I hadn't allowed myself to do since this nightmare began. I cried. Not quiet tears, but gut-wrenching sobs that came from somewhere deep inside. I cried for Jake, who'd lost his mother to something he couldn't understand. I cried for the children Jennifer had hurt, children whose faces I'd never see, but whose suffering I'd carry forever. I cried for the life I'd thought I had, the marriage I'd believed in, the future that had been stolen. And I cried for myself, for being so blind, so trusting, so completely fooled. One of the agents, a younger guy named Martinez, no relation, came in and found me. "Hey," he said quietly. "You okay?" "No," I said honestly. "I'm really not okay." He sat down across from me. "My sister was trafficked when she was 12, taken from a bus stop 3 blocks from our house. We didn't find her for 8 years. Did you get her back?" "Yes, but she's not the same person. She never will be. The people who did that to her, they stole more than just years of her life. They stole who she could have been." "I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be angry. Use that anger to make sure your testimony puts these people away forever. That's how you honor the victims. That's how you make meaning out of this horror." He was right. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being shocked and started being numb. But numbness wouldn't help Jake. It wouldn't help the victims. It wouldn't help anyone. I needed to be angry, and I needed to be strong. On day 5, Agent Torres returned with Jennifer's attorney, Robert Castellano. "Mr. Martinez," Castellano said, his voice lacking its earlier confidence, "my client would like to speak with you." "Absolutely not," I said immediately. "She's willing to cooperate, to provide information about the network in exchange for a reduced sentence, but she wants to talk to you first, to explain." "Explain?" I felt that anger Agent Martinez had talked about, rising hot and fierce. What could she possibly explain? How she bought and sold children, how she traumatized our son, how she lied to me for 13 years. "Mr. Martinez, my client understands the gravity of her crimes, but she wants you to know that her feelings for you and Jake were real, that despite everything, she loved you." I stood up. "Get out. Tell Jennifer that if she wants to cooperate, she can do it through the FBI. But I never want to see her again. I never want to hear her voice. She's dead to me." Castellano nodded slowly. "I understand. I'll convey your message." After he left, Agent Torres sat down beside me. "You did the right thing," she said. "Contact with her at this stage would only complicate the case." Did she really think I'd forgive her? That I'd hold her hand through this? People facing consequences often desperately reach for anything familiar. You and Jake represented her normal life. She's losing that, and she's grasping at straws. Good. I hope she feels every bit of that loss. I hope it tears her apart. Torres was quiet for a moment. "Mr. Martinez, we found something else during the investigation, something you need to know about." The way she said it made my stomach drop. "What?" "Your wife had a life insurance policy on Jake, $2 million, taken out 3 years ago." The room went cold. Why would she need life insurance on a 7-year-old? We're not sure yet, but given that she was planning to flee the country alone, we're investigating whether she had plans for Jake that didn't involve him coming with her. The implication was too horrible to process. You think she would have? We don't know, but we're treating it as a credible threat, which is another reason why you're both in protective custody. I thought about Jennifer tucking Jake into bed, reading him stories, kissing his forehead. Had those moments been real? Or had she been capable of planning something unspeakable while playing the role of loving mother? "When does the trial start?" I asked. "Preliminary hearings begin in 6 weeks. The actual trial won't be for at least a year. These cases are complex, and with international elements, it takes time." "A year of living like this, in hiding?" "We'll gradually transition you back to normal life. New identities if necessary. Witness protection if the threats are credible enough. But yes, your life has changed permanently. Mr. Martinez, I'm sorry." That night, Jake crawled into bed with me. He'd been having nightmares, though he wouldn't tell me what they were about. "Dad," he whispered in the darkness, "are the bad people going to find us?" I pulled him close. "No, buddy. The good guys are protecting us. We're safe." But Mom was bad, and she found us every day. The simple logic of a child, cutting through all the complexity. Mom wasn't bad to you, Jake. She loved you. She just did very bad things to other people. Can good people do bad things? Sometimes. And sometimes bad people do good things. People are complicated. I don't understand. I know. I don't really understand either. We lay there in the darkness, both of us trying to make sense of something that had no sense to make. My wife, the woman I'd loved, the mother of my child, had destroyed lives while tucking our son into bed at night. She'd kissed me goodbye in the morning, and then gone off to do monstrous things. And the worst part? Somewhere in the twisted complexity of her mind, she probably believed she loved us. But love without morality isn't love. It's just another form of selfishness. And Jennifer Martinez had been the most selfish person I'd ever known. On day 7, Agent Torres came in with her tablet, her face grave. "Mr. Martinez, there's been a development. One of the high-profile clients on your wife's list was found dead this morning. Apparent suicide." "Who?" "Judge Richard Carmichael, federal judge, presided over several high-profile cases. He left a note confessing to his crimes." "That's good, right? One less monster in the world?" "Maybe, or maybe it's a message. 3 other people on that list have disappeared, vanished completely. Their lawyers claim they've fled the country, but we suspect something else." "You think someone's killing them? Cleaning up loose ends?" "We think there's someone higher up in the organization who's protecting themselves, someone with the resources and motivation to eliminate witnesses." "Am I a witness?" "You're the most important witness. You can testify to your wife's behavior, her patterns, her contacts. You're the human face of this case, which makes you a target." The anger I'd cultivated suddenly mixed with fear, not for myself, but for Jake. They wouldn't go after a child, would they? Torres's silence was answer enough. "We need to move you again," she said. "Tonight, new location, new identities, complete lockdown until the trial." "For how long?" "As long as it takes to ensure your safety." I looked at Jake, sleeping peacefully on the couch, his Spider-Man figure clutched in his hand. He'd already lost his mother, his home, his normal life. Now he was losing his name, his identity, everything familiar. All because I'd handed him an iPad 7 days ago. 7 days that destroyed everything. 7 days that revealed the truth about the woman I'd married. 7 days that proved that monsters don't always look like monsters. Sometimes they look like the person sleeping beside you. Sometimes they look like the mother reading bedtime stories. Sometimes they look like love. 1 year later, the federal courthouse in downtown Chicago was a fortress. Metal detectors, armed guards, bomb-sniffing dogs. The trial of United States versus Jennifer Martinez had attracted media attention from around the world, and with it, threats. Lots of threats. I stood outside courtroom 7B, wearing a suit I'd bought specifically for this moment. Agent Torres stood beside me, her hand resting reassuringly on my shoulder. "You ready?" she asked. "No," I said honestly, "but let's do it anyway." The past year had been a blur of depositions, witness preparation, and protective custody. Jake and I had lived in 4 different safe houses under 3 different names. He'd missed 2nd grade entirely, receiving tutoring from FBI-approved teachers who didn't ask questions about why an 8-year-old boy needed to learn under armed guard. But today, finally, I would face Jennifer in court, and I would tell the truth about the woman I'd married. The courtroom was packed. Journalists filled the gallery, their cameras turned off per court order, but their notepads ready. I saw representatives from victim advocacy groups, law enforcement from multiple countries, and families. So many families whose children had been destroyed by the network Jennifer helped run. And there, at the defense table, sat my wife. She'd lost weight. Her blonde hair was pulled back severely, and she wore a conservative gray suit that her lawyers had probably chosen to make her look sympathetic. When she saw me enter, something flickered across her face. Hope? Regret? I couldn't tell anymore. I didn't want to tell. Judge Patricia Morrison presided, a stern woman in her 60s with a reputation for harsh sentences in crimes against children. She'd seen the evidence. She knew what Jennifer had done, and from the look on her face, she wasn't inclined toward mercy. The prosecutor, Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Chen, called me to the stand. "Please state your name for the record," he said. "David Martinez." "And what is your relationship to the defendant?" I looked directly at Jennifer. "She's my wife, or she was. I've filed for divorce." "Mr. Martinez, can you tell the court about October 15th, 2024? I told them everything, about Jake forgetting his tablet, about handing him Jennifer's iPad, about the phone call from the school. I described the moment Detective Crawford showed me what was on that device, the way my world had shattered in an instant. "Mr. Martinez," Chen said, "during your 13 years of marriage, did you ever suspect your wife was involved in criminal activity?" "No, never. She was a good mother, a devoted wife. Or so I thought. She was living a double life, and she was so good at it that I never saw the truth." "Did the defendant ever discuss her business trips with you?" "She said she was consulting for corporations, restructuring companies. She'd be gone for weeks at a time, and I believed her. I trusted her completely." "Looking back now, were there signs you missed?" I thought about all the late-night phone calls, the locked office, the separate bank accounts. Yes, there were signs. But when you love someone, when you trust them, you explain away the inconsistencies. You tell yourself there's a logical reason. You never imagine. My voice broke. Chen gave me a moment to compose myself. "You never imagine what, Mr. Martinez?" "You never imagine that the person sleeping beside you is a monster." Jennifer flinched. Good. I wanted her to feel every word. Chen walked me through the evidence, the ledgers, the offshore accounts, the secret apartment, the Singapore ticket. With each revelation, I watched the jury's faces harden. These 12 people would decide Jennifer's fate, and I could see they'd already made up their minds. Then it was Castellano's turn to cross-examine me. "Mr. Martinez, you claim you knew nothing about your wife's activities, but you were married for 13 years. You lived in the same house. How is it possible you never suspected anything?" "Because she was careful, because she compartmentalized, because I trusted her." "Isn't it true that you benefited financially from your wife's criminal enterprise, that the comfortable life you led was funded by—" "Objection." Chen was on his feet. "Counsel is implying facts not in evidence. Mr. Martinez has been thoroughly investigated and cleared of any wrongdoing." "Sustained," Judge Morrison said sharply. "Mr. Castellano, stick to the facts." But Castellano wasn't done. "Mr. Martinez, do you love your wife?" The question caught me off guard. "What?" "It's a simple question. Do you love Jennifer Martinez?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and I realized something that had taken me a year to understand. "I loved who I thought she was," I said slowly. "But that person never existed. The woman I loved was a fiction, a character Jennifer created to hide what she really was. So no, I don't love her. I don't even know her." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "No further questions," Castellano said quietly. Over the next 3 weeks, the prosecution built an overwhelming case. They called victims who'd escaped Jennifer's network, young women who'd been trafficked as children and had somehow survived. Their testimony was devastating. One woman, Maria, described being sold by Jennifer personally when she was 9 years old. "She told me I was going to a better place," Maria said through tears. "She smiled at me. She held my hand. And then she handed me over to a man who destroyed my life." Jennifer sat through it all with that same composed expression, but I noticed her hands shaking. Good. She should shake. She should feel every bit of their pain. The FBI presented evidence of Jennifer's network, charts showing connections across 17 countries, financial records proving millions in transactions, communication logs documenting years of operation. They showed that Jennifer wasn't just a facilitator. She was an architect. She'd built the system, recruited the clients, protected the operation. Marcus Volker, the man Jennifer had introduced as a colleague, testified via video link from a German prison. He'd taken a plea deal, and his testimony buried Jennifer. "She was brilliant," Volker said in his accented English. "She understood how to move money invisibly, how to recruit clients without detection, how to create legitimate cover for illegal operations. Without her, the network would never have grown so large." When the defense's turn came, Castellano tried to paint Jennifer as a victim herself, someone who'd been coerced, manipulated, trapped in a system she couldn't escape. But the evidence was too overwhelming. The ledgers in her handwriting, the apartment in her fake name, the ticket to Singapore with no plan to return. Jennifer herself never testified. Castellano advised against it, knowing the prosecution would tear her apart on cross-examination. On the final day of testimony, Chen called one last witness, a small woman in her 30s with haunted eyes and a voice that barely rose above a whisper. "Please state your name for the record." "Sarah Lynn." "Ms. Lynn, can you tell the court how you know the defendant?" "She trafficked me when I was 11 years old. I was held captive for 7 years before I escaped." The courtroom was silent. Even the journalists had stopped writing. "And what would you like to say to the defendant today?" Sarah Lynn looked directly at Jennifer. "I want her to know that she didn't break me. I survived. I rebuilt my life. I'm married now. I have a daughter. And every day I wake up, I'm proof that she failed. She tried to destroy me, but I'm still here." Jennifer was crying now, her composure finally shattered. But I felt no sympathy. This was justice. This was truth. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Judge Morrison scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. When that day came, the courtroom was even more packed than before. "Jennifer Martinez," Judge Morrison said, her voice cutting through the silence. "You have been convicted of operating a child trafficking network, of facilitating the abuse of hundreds of children, of conspiracy, money laundering, and numerous other charges. The evidence presented at trial revealed a level of calculation and cruelty that defies comprehension." She paused, looking down at Jennifer with undisguised disgust. "You used your intelligence and education to prey on the most vulnerable members of society. You destroyed lives while maintaining the facade of a respectable businesswoman, wife, and mother. You showed no remorse, no conscience, no humanity." The prosecution has recommended a sentence of 50 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. I find that recommendation inadequate. Jennifer Martinez, I hereby sentence you to 75 years in federal prison to be served consecutively on all counts, with no possibility of parole. You will spend the rest of your life behind bars, which is more mercy than you showed your victims." The gavel came down. Jennifer collapsed in her chair. Castellano caught her, but she was sobbing now, all pretense of control gone. As they led her away in handcuffs, she looked back at me one last time. Her mouth moved, forming words I couldn't hear but could easily read. "I'm sorry. Too late. Years too late." 2 years later. Jake is 10 now. We live in Portland under new names. The Witness Protection Program decided Chicago was too risky. He goes to a good school, has friends who know nothing about his mother or her crimes, and sees a therapist twice a week. Some days are better than others. He still has nightmares sometimes, still asks questions I don't know how to answer. But he's a resilient kid, stronger than I ever gave him credit for. "Dad," he asked last week, "do you think Mom ever really loved us?" We were making dinner together, something we do every night now. Just the two of us, navigating this new life we've built from the ruins of the old one. "I think she loved us in the only way she was capable of," I said carefully. "But her love was broken. It didn't work the way love is supposed to work." Mrs. Chen says love means protecting people, not hurting them. Mrs. Chen is his therapist, a wise woman who's helped Jake process trauma that no child should have to understand. Mrs. Chen is right. Then Mom didn't really love us. I pulled him into a hug. "Maybe not, but I love you enough for both of us." He hugged me back, and for a moment, everything was okay. I work remotely now, doing cybersecurity consulting for companies that don't ask too many questions about my past. It's quiet, stable, boring. Everything our old life wasn't. Agent Torres still checks in monthly. The network Jennifer helped run has been dismantled, though she warns me there are always others. Always people willing to profit from human suffering. "How are you holding up?" she asked during her last call. "We're surviving. Some days we're even happy." "That's good. That's all you can ask for, really." "Have you heard from Jennifer?" "She writes you letters. Every month. We've been intercepting them per your request. Do you want to know what they say?" "No," I said immediately. Then, after a pause, "Actually, yes, tell me." "She claims she's found God, that she's a changed person, that she wants your forgiveness." I laughed bitterly. "Of course she does. Even now, she's trying to manipulate me." "Do you think she's sincere?" "I think she's realized she'll die in prison and wants to feel better about herself. That's not the same as being sorry for what she did." "Fair enough. Do you want me to keep intercepting the letters?" "Yes. I don't want Jake to ever see them. He deserves to move forward without her reaching back to drag us down." Last month, I started volunteering with a victim advocacy group. I talk to families whose children have been trafficked, help them navigate the legal system, share my experience as someone who loved a trafficker without knowing it. It's hard. Every family I meet reminds me of my own blindness, my own failure to see the truth. But it's also healing, turning my pain into purpose, my shame into service. Sometimes people recognize me despite the new name. The case was too big, too public. They usually don't say anything, but I see it in their eyes. The question they're too polite to ask. How could you not know? I've learned to live with that question, because the truth is, I've asked myself the same thing 1,000 times. The answer is simple and complicated at once. You don't see what you're not looking for. You trust the people you love. And sometimes the people you love are very good at lying. Yesterday, I received a message through Agent Torres. Jennifer is sick, stage 4 cancer, diagnosed 3 months ago. The prison is providing treatment, but her prognosis is grim. She wants to see Jake one last time. I haven't told him yet. I'm not sure I will, because Jennifer forfeited her right to be a mother the moment she put that iPad in our house, knowing what was on it, willing to risk her son's innocence to protect her secrets. She made her choices. Now she gets to die with them. That probably sounds cruel. Maybe it is. But I've learned that forgiveness isn't mandatory, and some actions don't deserve redemption. Jennifer Martinez destroyed lives. She traumatized children. She broke families. And she did it all while kissing her son goodnight and telling her husband she loved him. She doesn't get a Hollywood ending. She doesn't get a deathbed reconciliation. She gets exactly what she deserves: to die alone, forgotten by the family she betrayed. Jake and I are going camping this weekend, just the two of us, the way it's been for 3 years now. We'll sit by the fire, roast marshmallows, tell stories. He'll ask me about stars and planets and whether aliens exist, and I'll answer his questions with honesty, because that's what he deserves. Honesty, transparency, a father who tells the truth, even when it's hard. The other day, Jake told me something that broke my heart and healed it at the same time. "Dad, I'm glad it's just us now. Is that bad?" "No, buddy, it's not bad. It's just honest." Mrs. Chen says being honest is brave. Mrs. Chen is a very smart lady. He smiled. That beautiful, innocent smile that reminds me why I fought so hard to protect him. "You're brave too, Dad." Maybe I am. Or maybe I'm just a man who learned the hardest way possible that love without truth is just a beautiful lie. And I'm done with lies. 3 years ago, I handed my son an iPad, thinking I was solving a simple problem. Instead, I uncovered a nightmare that destroyed my marriage, shattered my family, and exposed me to horrors I'll carry forever. But I also discovered something else, that I was stronger than I knew, that my son was resilient beyond measure, that truth, no matter how painful, is always better than comfortable lies. Jennifer Martinez will die in prison. The network she built has been dismantled. The victims she harmed are slowly healing. And Jake and I are building a new life, one based on honesty, trust, and the knowledge that we survived the worst and came out the other side. Not unchanged, not undamaged, but still standing, still fighting, still here. And sometimes, that's all you can ask for. To survive the unsurvivable. To find meaning in the meaningless. To take the worst moment of your life and transform it into the beginning of something better. My name is David Martinez. I'm 41 years old, and I'm the man who discovered that the person he loved most in the world was a monster. But I'm also the man who protected his son, testified for justice, and refused to let evil win. And that's the story I choose to tell. Not the story of how I was fooled, but the story of how I fought back,